You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we will be talking about the science fiction horror film Annihilation, written and directed by Alex Garland and released on February 23rd, 2018.
Yeah.
I remember when this first came out and going and seeing it in theaters and being super excited about it, because I really, really like Alex Garland. And then, yeah, also, I had just read the book before seeing this. This was early Zed-Head. Not early day. I mean, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we had I think this was the first iteration of the Zed-Head book club for Podcastica.
Really?
Stuff. We did Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, and knowing that the Alex Garland adaptation was coming out soon, so we read that, and so I read the movie and read the book,
Okay.
read the book and was really gripped by it, and saw the movie, and there's a lot of differences, which I'm sure we'll talk about some of that stuff or whatever. It was more of a loose adaptation. I think Alex Garland said something about, like, he didn't reread the book before making the movie, or, like, he wanted it to be, like, a dream of a book or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but still a lot of stuff was close, but I really enjoyed it. And I never read any of the other thing, which is funny because then a lot of my, like, just personal, like, close friends outside of Podcastica and Zedheads and stuff, when I mentioned Annihilation, they're always like, "Oh, did you read the book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, only the first one. I haven't read the rest of the trilogy." And, like, all of them are like, "Same." Like, I know so many people who've read Annihilation and then didn't continue. So I want to continue. It's the Southern Reach trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer, which is Annihilation, Authority, and Acceptance. So I read the first one. So actually, while I was watching this movie and taking my notes, I went on Amazon, as I tend to do sometimes, and just ordered. They have, like, a full, like, trilogy collection just in one book. So I ordered that, even though I already own Annihilation, because I was like, I just have them all together. And I was like, I'll reread Annihilation because it's been quite a while. And then it's not that long. Anyway, it's actually a pretty short book. And then I can read the other ones because I'm interested. And then there's a fourth one that he's releasing in October this year.
Oh, wow.
So no longer a trilogy. The fourth one.
You're going to have to get on it then if you want.
I've already pre-ordered it.
Okay.
So, but I pre-ordered it, so I'll read the other ones this year, and then it'll be coming whenever it comes out in October. So yeah, I'm excited to get back into that, along with all the other things I'm trying to read right now. I'm still a little over halfway through Dr. Sleep, so I've got to wrap that up. But I just set Dr. Sleep down because I am reading Lord of the Flies now. I started that last night. Because I get a little plug. By the time you're hearing this, I'm talking about this a week even in advance, so they should be recording this weekend as you're listening to this, I think. The Yellow Jackets WTF podcast. I think it's Penny, Wendy, Cassie, and Jason.
Yeah.
Are doing an episode about the Lord of the Flies, the book, not one of the movie adaptations. And so it's like a little book club on the podcast. So I figured, I'll pick it up. It's a quick read, and it was like $6 on Amazon. So I was like, I'll grab it and read through it. I've got, 2 weeks. I can rip through that. And then get back to my Dr. Sleep. And then maybe jump on the Southern Reach stuff. But then I've also got like M.R. Carey's new one is coming out in like July, I think. So like books, too many books to read all the time. More.
Yeah, and you don't do enough driving to do the books on tape, and you don't like them.
I don't
anyway.
like audiobooks anyway. I prefer to
I know
physical books.
you like
anyway.
to have the paper and the pages. You've made that very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, audiobooks work better for me just because I can listen to them while I'm doing some other things, as long as it's not something that requires a lot of concentration. Like if I'm washing the dishes or cooking dinner, then I can handle listening to an audiobook, but not if I'm at work. Like, I don't know how I ever used to listen to podcasts while I was working in an office, but I did. And I was able to pay attention to them and do my work at the same time. But working from home now, I cannot listen to podcasts. It's just different.
Yeah.
Different world.
Yeah. But back on the movie side of things. Yeah. So I'm excited to talk about this one. I've been quite Alex Garland kick, prepping for this one with watching this. I had 3 Alex Garland movies, 3 days in a row. Because I went and saw Civil War in theaters, his newest one that's out right now in theaters. Go watch it. It's great. And then the only movie that he directed that I hadn't seen yet was Men, so I watched that the next night. And then the third night in a row was when I was doing all the prep and notes and stuff for this movie. So
yeah.
Alex Garland marathon a little bit, 3 days in a row, 3 Garland movies. So now I've seen everything that he's directed. Except for Devs, which is a TV show, and that's on my list soon as I wrap up.
Yeah.
Shogun, I've got like 2 episodes left of Shogun I'm gonna like binge through. Because there's another little plug for you. Podcastica's gonna be doing, like they did with Fallout, we're gonna have some coverage. I don't remember exactly who's covering it right now, who's talking about it, but stay tuned for that. I'll give you official plugs at some point. Yeah, so the Shogun full season coverage episode will be up on House Podcastica, I believe, soon, like this week or next week. So gonna catch up on that. And then also Civil War, since I mentioned that with Alex Garland. Go to the like House Podcastica feed for that with Jem and Jason and David talking about that movie as well. It's really good.
Yeah.
Lots of plugs early in the episode, but they're like in my brain, so I'm throwing them out there.
Yeah. Yeah, Civil War was not what I expected, but it was really good. I don't really know what I was expecting. Other than, I don't know, I just thought it was going to be different. But I really enjoyed it a lot, and people should definitely go see it and then listen to the episode where they break it down.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're not breaking down Civil War on this podcast right now. We are talking about Annihilation, so...
Yes. Got a different Alex Garland written and directed movie to talk about.
Well, I mean, let's be real. Alex Garland is going to be writing the 28 Years Later movie that we've all been wanting and waiting for years. Yes. So, he's kind of hot right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always said I really like, because 28 Days Later, he's not the director, but he co-wrote with Danny Boyle, and so he had a lot to do with 28 Days, and that was great. And then everything he has directed, I have seen now, as far as movies. Annihilation, we'll talk about. Right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and spoiler alert, I love this movie. I'm gonna have a lot to say about it. Ex Machina is another one of his that he did right before this one. That is one of my favorites. I love so much. Men was weird, not my favorite, but some great acting.
Rory Kinnear.
Yeah, and then Civil War was incredible, so
yeah,
definitely check that out. I can safely say, overall, everything combined, I'm a huge Garland fan. I think he's great. Even if he gets a little off the wall sometimes, he's great.
Are you at the level with Garland as you are with Edgar Wright?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't think anybody compares to Edgar. I mean, Mike Flanagan, but that's very different. They're on almost separate but the same pedestals.
Okay.
At the high, I couldn't.
Not ready to add another pedestal.
But yeah, it's still Garland's great. I love Alex Garland. But for me personally, Edgar Wright and Mike Flanagan probably still higher on the totem pole.
Okay. That's good to know.
Mm.
There'll be a quiz later for all of our listeners. Who are Pake's favorite directors? Maybe we'll give away
that should be kind of an easy answer. If you've listened to this podcast for any substantial amount of time, I've talked about those at some points.
Maybe we'll give away some swag at some point. We'll have a little quiz. But going back to Annihilation, we're going to get started like we always do with some production notes. So it was filmed in Suffolk, Berkshire, Holcombe Beach in Norfolk, and Marsworth Airfield in England. Garland wrote the screenplay, which was loosely based on the 2014 novel of the same name by Jeff Vandermeer, as we've talked about. And Annihilation, as Pake said, is the first book in the Southern Reach trilogy. Budget was between 40 and 55 million, and it grossed just 43.1 million at the box office. It's 115 minutes long. Pake, bring us a synopsis.
All right. A biologist signs up for a dangerous secret expedition into a mysterious zone where the laws of nature don't apply.
Yeah, I'm not sure what laws apply there. Okay, so this movie reminded me of bits and pieces from a bunch of different movies. Like, there were things that I saw that reminded me of, like, just one scene in another film. Or a scene from a TV show. Even some of the sets reminded me of maps that we have in Dead by Daylight. Because the shimmer is incredibly colorful, and it just represents, like, some of the maps that we have there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool to see a lot of this kind of stuff play out. The last little book connection, I guess, for now, because I've got a note about it, so continue on before we really break down characters and stuff, is, again, it's been a while since I read that first book, so I'm going to reread it, but I do remember, like, there's stuff in the book that they didn't touch on at all here, or, at all, but, like, a lot of it was cool to see in play, like, these, like, kind of the DNA splicing, and, like, the very colorful, like, I mean, honestly, it's alien world kind of stuff taking place here on Earth. It's like this alien DNA splicing in and mixing and changing the things that are on our planet. And that's a really cool visual when reading. So then to see how well Alex Garland kind of portrayed a lot of that and really made it like, oh, that's how that looks. That's how that works was really cool. There are things that weren't included. I'm not getting too spoilery with the book and stuff. There's like this like underground tower, which is hard to explain, if that makes sense. It's basically like an ever-changing living organism within itself, and it gets really disturbing and dark and creepy and stuff. So like the hole or the tunnel that's like in the lighthouse floor where Lena goes down and finds Ventress, or maybe not, is maybe the closest representation to that.
Yeah. That's
in the movie, but it's still like nothing like what is described and shown in the book.
Yeah, it goes way deep under the lighthouse, right? Like it's way, 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 way down like a spiral.
Well, it's not even connected to the lighthouse, if I remember correctly. It's like its own thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's also somewhere else. Again, it's been a while since I've read it, but I'll go back to that. And I think there's also some like extra like secrets and kind of shady stuff going on with Ventress or just the psychologist in the book. Because that was another thing, is they didn't have names. Not even Lena. Nobody had names in the book. They were all the biologist, the psychologist. They were just like by their title and not their names, which was interesting.
I've never read the book, but one of the things that I read when I was doing research for this movie is that the book focused more on like assimilating and replacing everything with like alien clones. Would you say that's accurate?
I don't think in the first book. I think that's that the trilogy maybe goes on more of that. I haven't read those second books. I've heard a little bit about them, but no, the first book is very much this story of just this group of scientists, these women that go in and kind of what they experience as everything's starting.
Yeah. I really appreciated the creatures that we got to see and some of the visual references and cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting how the shimmer was just touching and changing things.
Yeah.
And somewhat like duplicating and cloning. It just, all tying in with refraction, and it got very scientific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting science fiction horror. It's like...
Yeah.
It's a very unique form of science fiction where everything is very unique and stuff you haven't really thought of or heard of before, and then the actual like reality or like what that means when you see it play out, you're like, oh, that's horrifying.
Yeah. It's very strange. I mean, just the scene where they go into the swimming pool and there is the guy that's basically like, I think it was the one that was cut into, and he's sitting in a chair, but he's kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It reminded me a little bit of The Last of Us.
Yeah, definitely like Last of Us vibes.
Yeah.
For sure with that.
Yeah, I got The Last of Us.
Without the zombie stuff. But
Yeah.
like this whole like, basically his DNA was like spliced with and became like plant and like fungal material and just kind of grew, and
it's kind of like replacing things. Like,
yeah,
you had different organisms. You had plants, you had animals, you had people, but they were almost interchangeable at different times based on what was happening, because there was, one point where Josie just decided she was gonna let it take over. And she was, instead of fighting it or continuing on with the mission, she just decided, nope, I'm just gonna let it, let the shimmer change me to what it wants me to be.
Just gonna become a tree.
Yep. I thought some of the visual effects were really cool. I liked the tree people, like the ones that were made out of flowers and vines and sticks, basically.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot. I thought it was interesting because it really looked kind of post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
In there, because people had left and been evacuated, but the place had changed so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was cool. And we'll talk about, a lot of that stuff as far as just some of the shimmer stuff and the effects and things in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a lot of relief. Like, this one's going to be fun. But before I guess we get in too many, like, tangent off of a tangent off of a tangent, we will go through this like we usually do now, finally.
Pake is bringing us back on track.
Only 20 minutes in. Let's actually get on track. Yeah, we'll talk about characters. Now, again, it is kind of a group effort here. We've got more of an ensemble cast, but a lot of it, the main character, obviously, Lena here, and covering her. So I'll start there, and then her husband, Sergeant Kane, I'll kind of combine with her. Their stories very intertwined, more than you might even know.
Yeah.
So do that, and then I've got, like, we can get to Dr. Ventress and the team and stuff there, and then, some shimmer stuff, but start there. So where we pick up with her at the beginning is Lena has lost her husband, or so she thinks. He's been on some secretive military mission. We learn that he was sent into the Shimmer. She doesn't know anything about this at this point, so he's just on some weird, mysterious mission and never returned, and she just assumes dead or missing in action. It's been a year. So she's kind of still grieving, but at that place where she's ready to move on or ready to begin moving on. She's kind of at that little, border. And so, of course, at that time, as she's repainting the bedroom, finally making like one of the first big steps in acceptance and moving forward, that's whenever he chooses to just reappear. He doesn't know how he got there. He doesn't know what's going on. It's just, oh, I'm here. Spoiler alert. Well, hopefully you're you've watched the movie, you've seen the whole thing before we talk about it. That's because it's not really him, but
Nope. It's part of him. It's kind of...
Yeah.
Is it a clone? Is it a duplicate? Is it like some sort of evolution of him? Like what?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know.
And it's not really explained.
No.
So it's on purpose because
it's vague.
Alex Garland really...
Yeah.
One of the big things about Alex Garland is he doesn't like to end things on a solid note. He doesn't like to explain things. He likes things left open for you to extrapolate the data and figure out from there what you think happened and kind of let your own mind play with things at the end of stuff.
Yeah, he definitely wants you to look at it and get your own interpretation of what comes next or how it ends.
Yeah. Yeah, but for now, he's back home, appears in at the bedroom door. Not a lot of information. Like I said, he doesn't know where he was, how he got back. It's just kind of out. And we find out it's not necessarily that Kane would have had like memory loss or all this stuff, but it's just because, again, it's this alien clone duplicate of him that really is just learning as it goes and doesn't know much anything anyway. And I think even though it's not completely spelled out, I mean, the fact that he is immediately degrading and coughing up blood and then goes through all this like cardiac arrest and everything shutting down.
Yeah.
And I think even though it's not spelled out for us, I think it's just because he's outside the shimmer.
That is what I was thinking as well.
It's whatever these alien beings, whatever this is, it's why they're in the shimmer and the shimmer keeps expanding because they have to annihilate and assimilate the world in order to occupy it, because when he moves outside of the shimmer, his body just starts shutting down and going out because it's away from what gives him life and lets him continue on.
Yeah. Though I think contains DNA from Kane, he really doesn't have all of his memories. Like, I think he knows who Lena is, but it's not that simple.
Yeah.
It's not that simple. It gave me vibes of The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is another movie that we have not covered, that we have to cover. And there are two versions, one from the 50s and one from late 70s.
Well, there was another movie. I haven't seen either of those. There's one that came out in the late aughts, I believe, at some point, that's loosely based on that. I think it was just called The Invasion.
Yeah, with Nicole Kidman.
Where they can't fall asleep or else it takes them over. I saw that one, like, I think in theaters back when that came out, but it's like loosely,
it's similar. It's very similar. I feel like maybe we're going to have to do the original Invasion, the 78 Invasion, and then do The Invasion because they're so similar. As some sort of triple dip thing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So many movies. Always.
Always so many movies.
Constantly adding stuff, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so here... Yeah, so we see immediately, like, she's talking to him and trying to get answers, and she's just, like, getting frustrated with the lack of understanding that even he has and what's going on, and the fact that he just seems to be completely unbothered by, like, you've been gone for a year, and now you're here, and, like, there's no intellectual connection, there's no emotional connection, there's no, like, what happened, why aren't you telling me anything? And then that's when he kind of goes under, like, cardiac arrest, and everything starts shutting down. She calls an ambulance, and he's got this medical transport taking him, and it gets hijacked. Not hijacked, but the feds come in and crash the party, armed and everything, and take him immediately into custody. So you're like, something big is definitely going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Which, whatever happened to him, that they're thinking, the fact that his wife is a Johns Hopkins cellular biologist, is a lucky break, I guess, in this way that, she just might be actually like the best chance of helping the situation. If anybody is able to try to figure out what's going on,
it's her.
She's a great contender for that, for sure.
But still, I mean, the thought of her agreeing to go in the shimmer kind of floored me because she knows what happened when her husband came out. Plus, no one ever comes out. So as far as anyone knows, he's the first one that ever came out of there.
Yeah.
And so you do have to wonder if it's is it just the clones that have a problem surviving, or is it people who come out of there? I mean, would a person who's been in there long enough come out and have a similar reaction? Because their DNA would have been played around.
Nobody who has ever gone in living has ever come out before until Lena at the end of this movie.
Right. So you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those questions.
Yeah, of course she does have her own military experience herself to some degree, which comes in handy for sure. Yeah.
It definitely does, because she doesn't go in there alone.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but and then I like, you know, it cuts back and forth because we see scenes early on with this character. Is it Benedict Wong? I believe
it is Benedict Wong.
That he plays Dr. Lomax. That based on these like interviews and things with him, like we obviously know that she comes back out because like very early on they're talking about her experiences inside, and now that she's out and nobody else has come out, and also that like you said you were kind of surprised that she went in, but I think she doesn't really have any other connections. Like, it was like her and her husband. And like she was having this affair with this Daniel guy, but I was like, oh, he's a piece of trash. Got it. And so she's just kind of on her own, doesn't really have a lot of connections. And it's like really the only option she has. She's like, I can sit here and watch him die, or I can take this risk and there's some percentage of a chance that I might be able to find the answers.
Yeah, and I can see I guess I can see why she would do that. But that affair, they don't really show us that the affair happened until a bit later. Mm-hmm. And it took me back to her interactions with Dan at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it sounded like he was going to invite her over for a barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm wondering if he was just trying to get them back together.
Either that, or even if it was just innocent as a barbecue, it's like, really? After everything we've been through and like things I've said to you, it's like, you're going to invite me over to your home with your wife and maybe kids or, you know, other family members and friends.
It's a bit
and
awkward.
Just act like things are normal? Like, no, I'm good. Yeah.
I think Lena blames herself in some way that because she had the affair, because Kane found out about it, maybe that's why he went into the Shimmer. Like, that's why he agreed to go in. But I also think he was told he had to go in. Like, or maybe he was offered the assignment and he accepted it. And maybe him accepting it had to do with finding out about her affair.
Yeah, it could. I think that part of this story is also, like, just deeper than the surface level of like the crazy sci-fi thing that's going on is Alex Garland again likes to play with, like, you know, the human condition and emotional kind of things. And so, I could see a lot of that kind of underlying theme of the choices that people make and the guilt that they carry changing who they are, whether they really know or not. And so a lot of that, I think that is kind of like a sub line through this, is this idea that she's the guilt of the affair, but also is like, is that what pushed him to take the mission and go in? And now he's gone because of my actions. Right. And now
her responsibility
does it fall on me to do what I can to make it right.
Yeah. We get these glimpses of them actually being happy. And then that last scene when he's going to go on this mission to the Shimmer, you can see a coldness between them that is not as evident earlier in the flashbacks. Yeah. So you know, and she admits that he has found out about this affair, and so he is... It appears they're trying to work things out, but I'm not sure how connected they are at this point, because they look very distant at that moment.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, so when she goes in, she doesn't go alone. We'll talk about the team a little bit more. I've got points on them, but, you know, Dr. Ventress kind of leading this expedition that Lena joins along with Anya, Josie, and Cass. Just like, this group of scientists, like, you know, it's a new approach in a way that's all female, all like scientists and not military.
Yeah.
Although Lena does have the military background, but she's mainly like scientists now. So it's like we're trying through things. We're throwing different noodles at the wall and seeing what happens at this point.
Well, because that the shimmer is an organism. Okay, it's not just. I mean, it's an alien organism.
Yeah.
You don't know what it senses when people with guns go into it. Like, was it sensing, bad intentions and force them to, turn on themselves and each other?
Right.
Will it be different if it is a group of scientists that are women?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what will it be like? But to me, it used the creatures to attack and take them out.
Yeah. Didn't make a whole lot of difference.
It didn't seem to care.
Yeah. But yeah, they go in, and immediately after entering the shimmer, they right away lose several days of time and memory. Like, they walk in and then they just come to, and it's looking at stuff. It's like, we've been here for several days. Like, camp is set up, our rations have been depleted a little bit. So it's so we've been here, but we're also just getting here and starting. Like, it's this very discombobulating. And I don't know, that's not explained exactly again why that happens, but it's just this, something going on with them biologically, DNA changing, and maybe they immediately black out for a little bit and pass out, and then, yeah, it's not really explained, but they forget what's going on. And then aside from that, obviously the comms aren't going to be working or anything.
Right.
They know that from all the previous expeditions, but even any other kind of instruments like compasses and stuff are out as well. Like, nothing is working. And it's this refraction that Josie points out and talks about later, that it's everything is refracted besides just DNA, but also any kind of signals, wavelengths, anything is just.
That reminded me a bit of From, where you're in a place, it doesn't have visible walls, but you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And the comms are down. It seemed to mess around with the space-time continuum, it wasn't, like they lost time. And so when you're in there for a couple of days, it may seem to the outside world like you've been in there for a couple of weeks. I think the timing is just different.
Yeah. Because
Kane was gone for a year, but I don't think that that's how long that he felt when he was in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's into kind of Hollow Earth and what was the other something Mundy or whatever from Monarch, this kind of in-between world where time is all different and stuff. Yeah, there are references you think that other different things since then have done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different. It is not the norm. You lose time. You change while you're in the shimmer.
Mm-hmm. So while they're there, again, we talked about her military experience being handy because they come across this alligator and she's able to handle that situation with her gun skills and military ability there. Where they also see some the weirdness of the shimmer with the alligator. That's where they start piecing together that things are different here. But
that alligator had shark-like teeth.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like taking DNA from a few things and putting it together.
Yeah, everything just kind of blends.
Blending. It's very blended. It just is very much like goo, basically, as far as how it all goes together.
Yeah, so I'll jump to shimmer notes just because it's a cool concept. I actually really love it. It's this ever expanding, slowly kind of thing that hasn't affected any major areas yet, but will in due time. I mean, it's still, they have that talk, it's annihilation. That's the point of this thing, is it's just going to keep growing and growing. And every approach so far has been fruitless about finding out what's going on. We see the flowers she's pointing out, they're all connected. They're all the same. They should be the same species, but they look different genetically. They're different. The alligator, you mentioned having shark teeth and other kind of things. It's all the flora and fauna, anything living within the space of the shimmer is affected. The shimmer actively is editing and changing and splicing the genes and DNA of organisms into new things.
Yeah.
Which leads to some really cool stuff. I love the creature design in this movie.
Me too.
I mean, the alligator was like basic, and that's the thing. The closer you get to the source, the closer you get to the lighthouse, the crazier it gets, the wilder it gets. The alligator looks like a regular alligator until you look at the teeth and you look at some of the like things. But the closer you get, you know, like the tree people or even like the duplicate deer with kind of like these you know, antlers that are made of like vines and stuff and have these really cool effects. And then of course the bear, we will talk about the bear.
We will talk about. He was not a cocaine bear.
No.
That is for sure. He reminded me of this horse, Maurice, that is in Dead by Daylight, because he's just got some of the similar look. But that bear. Yeah.
So it's wilder as they go, but like the creature design is cool. And then we talk about the DNA refraction, which is a phenomenal concept. Again, like I said, I love seeing it played out. But yeah, the plants that grow to look like people. And I don't think it was like Josie every time. Those aren't all like people that turned into plants. I think literally, as they were talking about, it's just plants and seeds and stuff that are there. They're melding with this refracted DNA in the area that like, well, yeah, people used to live here. Many people were probably buried here. Mm-hmm. It seems like a small town. So their DNA is literally just embedded in the ground and in the area. So the growth of the trees and the flowers are just going to suck up that human DNA and adapt that way.
Yeah, and it's completely molding itself together. It's like it's mixing and blending. It's like chemistry, basically, or you know, it not just chemistry. It's taking everything and just I don't know. Is it trying to make it better? I'm not sure.
As far as, I mean, we kind of, the answer we get, even Lena suspects, is I don't think there is any goal, whether it's positive or nefarious. I don't think there is any kind of goal. It's just, it is. That's what it does.
Yeah.
Whether it means to or not, that's what, or these beings, this organism, this thing, whatever they are from whatever alien thing this is, I don't think it has good or bad intentions with anything. It's just, that's what it does. That's how it exists, is to change and take over and renew what exists elsewhere, wherever it lands. Like,
it copies and pastes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it deletes the original, kind of. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know, cloning. It made me think of the stuff that I do with photography and how I'm cloning things and and copying and pasting and recreating. And this is very, I mean, it's a little similar when you think about...
just on a genetic level.
Yeah. That's scary, right? Yeah. I mean, because we've seen what happens when you mess around with DNA. Dr. Hammond, talking to you. This is on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
There's no one in a lab doing this. It's basically an organism that is just ebbing and flowing and creating and destroying and recreating.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Yeah. We see like some things, just kind of get edited and changed. And then there's also the duplicates. And even in one of those flashback or flash forward in a way scenes with Lena talking to Lomax, and when she's explaining the trip and the things they saw, and she mentions duplicates, and I was like, that's very important to the key like climax of this movie with what happened to Kane, and even kind of what happens to her at the end, or Ventress, or these duplicates play a huge role there. But more on that later. I
kind of thought the deer were kind of...
Yeah, those were definitely duplicates. Like, they were moving... As you see, like, her duplicate that shows up at the end, it's mirroring her actions and trying to, like... And so I think that deer situation was a little further along than hers was. But that's kind of... It adapts and learns and grows from just mirroring and mimicking.
Yeah, she tried to get out and it wouldn't let her because it was... I don't know. It was fighting against what she was doing, I guess, when she was trying to get out of the lighthouse. But I also thought it kind of represented her fight within herself.
Yeah, absolutely.
With everything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
She was battling
it's kind of,
herself.
this idea of, like, you can't really run away from yourself. So, like, sometimes you have to face yourself.
Yep.
To deal with decisions and things. Yeah.
It's not always pretty either. Like, when you have to face yourself, it can be really daunting and scary because you have to acknowledge decisions you made that were maybe not the best.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But with Lena going in, and after she meets the team, and going in, she, like, right from the beginning, because as she's meeting them for the first time, they're talking about their theories, and they mention her husband. They mention Sergeant Kane. They don't know who she is. They don't know her connection, but, they're like, isn't that crazy and that weird, whatever. And so she chooses to kind of lie to them, or omission of truth.
Yeah.
And not let her know her connection to her husband, just to avoid any conflict of interest, or, she doesn't want them to view her differently, or, well, what are you actually doing here? What's the plan, or has he affected you in any way, or what's going on? She'd rather just leave things as they are and just be part of the team. Of course, Ventress knows, because she brought her in through all of this with Kane anyway, but she holds on to that for the time. She even tells her, like, she's like, I wasn't sure about Eli, but then she's like, after I saw that video and how the women reacted, she's like, no, maybe you're onto something about just kind of sticking to yourself for a little while on that information.
I don't think that Ventress looked at Lena as... I feel like she almost conned her in some ways to get her to go with her. And she wasn't forthcoming about her reasons for going in either.
Yeah, Ventress is an interesting character. Again, not fleshed out a whole lot. Well, I guess technically the end fleshed way out.
Yeah.
But yeah, because again, it's been a while since I read the book, but if I remember, like, there was some, like, the psychologist was real shady. There was some other stuff going on that. So they played off that a little bit with the movie, but yeah, they come across the former Southern Reach base, the building they were at before they took off, but the former location before it got overtaken by the Shimmer expanding, so they had to move to a little further back, and they see that's where Kane and his unit had been stationed when they went in. But the base is empty now, and it's super, like, foreboding. You see soldiers' names crossed out on this list, and they have this guard duty rotation schedule.
At what point, when you're seeing all of these happen, I mean, at what point when you're seeing things like this list of people and names crossed out, rotations and things, and realizing, I mean, what point do you realize and decide, okay, maybe we should go back?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they're having this thought, because that's just like, they had a guard rotation for a reason. We should do the same. Like, they've experienced the alligator, but, like, still at that point, it's like, there are definitely dangerous things here.
Oh, yeah, that alligator is nothing compared to some of the other things that that bear.
Yeah, but, like, based off of, like, what it seems what happened here, they're like, obviously we do need to protect ourselves to some degree, or be careful. And then they find the footage on the camcorder, which... very disturbing. You see, like, the guy being taken over, which is really what happened to Josie. But, like, the soldiers kind of seeing what's going on, and the way that they experiment with it in the video, and it is disturbing. I found it frustrating that Anya was so, like, she just wants to disregard it, and it's like, oh, it's a trick of the light. It's this, it's that, like, it's not real. It didn't happen. It's like, she's literally the expert.
I know.
In that field. Like, she's the botanist or whatever, right? Like, she's the, like, and it's like, what? That's the whole point of this mission, is that everything that goes on in here has been a scientific mystery. Yeah. So yeah, like, what you're seeing there, it's not a clear answer, but it's information. So why is she going to be, like, Nope, I don't believe it. It's like, it's your job to believe it and try to understand what hasn't been understood before. That's why you're here.
Well, they all went in and they had their own little issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one was a cutter, another one, they all had some sort of disorder.
Yeah.
And so going into it, whatever they went through was going to be probably exacerbated by their underlying condition.
Right. If Anya had issues with trusting people,
yes,
it's just tenfold and tenfold, where she doesn't trust this. And eventually she's the one that finds the connection between Lena and Kane and goes
crazy,
just off the wall about it. It's like, you're lying to me, so you're trying to get us killed. And she's like going to sit here and threaten to kill everyone else because she's been lied to. It's just everything gets added and
she was responsible for her own death.
Mm-hmm.
Really, because she went off the deep end. But honestly, we don't know how that she'd been affected at this point. Like, how much they were affected by their surroundings, by the shimmer. Because we know further on, and with what we saw with Kane, the shimmer does interact with you and changes you.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, I questioned at one point after I watched it the first time, which was years ago. I questioned whether or not at some point they were being replaced by their duplicate before, like, if that situation with Kane had happened with any of them and they were just replaced, kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But then I decided against it.
Yeah.
I thought it was probably not.
Yeah, they were just more, just being changed in a lot of different ways.
I think their underlying conditions, though, made it more difficult.
Yeah,
I think it made it easier for them to, you know, for Anya, it was easier for her to disregard. Like, she didn't want to accept it. She didn't want to accept what she had seen, which, can you imagine? Oh my God. They cut you open and what you see is these, it just looked like snakes to me. And I was just like, oh, no. It was really creepy.
Yeah. So they stay there. There's kind of this rotation. They've got like the guard tower. And Ventress is off kind of working on plans and maps and trying to figure out where they're headed. And Lena goes down there to talk to her, which they're having a really meaningful conversation. I think it was a really good conversation between them that was cut short by a certain creature who just couldn't bear it any longer. Sorry, that was bad. But no, because what we do get is, the thing that sticks in my mind the absolute most when I think of this movie is that freaking bear.
Well, because it looked like half of his face, it looked mutated and dead, but yet alive. Like, part of his face was missing. Like I said, it reminds me of Maurice from Dead by Daylight. A horse that has a third eye but is dripping blood. Like, it's just, it looks real creepy.
Yeah, which the first time, nobody even sees it, but Ventress and Lena, and of course Shepard, because it pops in and snags her, Cass, and just snags her and leaves.
Yep.
So then, like, the next day they've got to go out, kind of assessing that and trying to find her, dead or alive. Something I have a note here, because they don't really point it out directly. But, again, with the shimmer stuff, when Lena is being interviewed by Dr. Lomax, do you notice anything about a tattoo that is on her arm?
Yeah, the Ouroboros.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there anything especially interesting about that tattoo?
I thought one of the girls had one.
Yeah, Lena didn't have that tattoo before she went in. Anya did. That was Anya's.
Yeah.
Genetically, it copied onto her skin somehow. It's just a little, like,
that is
like, if you could easily miss it kind of thing.
Yeah.
That, like, it shows physical evidence of them even splicing into each other. Just the being in there just near each other has changed them in some ways.
Yeah.
The fact that Lena developed her Anya's tattoo.
Yeah, it's kind of just like a blender, you know, a non-slicing blender that just kind of takes DNA and it floats in the air and it mixes with others. And yeah, it's not something that is concrete. It's just something that is really fluid.
Yeah. Yeah, so after Shepard's taken, the team is ready to leave, the other girls, mainly like Josie and Anya. Ventress says that we're going to continue to Lighthouse. That's the goal. That's what we're here for. And so Lena is trying to like play mediator a little bit and let's meet in the middle. We continue to the coast towards the lighthouse because that's still the quickest way out. It's the closest perimeter. But then as we learn again with those like interviews, that was a ploy. Mm-hmm. In her own mind, again, the reason she's here is for her husband.
Yes.
So she's not leaving without answers. She's not leaving without some chance at being able to save him or get something. So she's not going to leave. But it's like she's going to say what she has to say to get the rest of the team to get her there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so she's just she's playing this mediator role. But yeah, it's a ploy. She's kind of with Ventress. It's like, no, we're here. We're getting the mission done.
She doesn't even know if she can really save Kane. I mean, he could be dead by the time she gets out. Mm-hmm. I mean, at that point, she really doesn't know what is going to happen, but she figures that if she might die trying, but at least she's doing something. Because for a year, she didn't. She really retreated into herself. And so this is just giving her an opportunity to go and try. But I also think it's changing her while she's in there. Like, the whole thing. The shimmer is an organism that just envelops everything and mixes it together.
Yeah. Yeah, as we see that, again, real-time, like, physical stuff. Like, Anya, her, like, skin is moving on her hand. Like, and it's making her think of that video she watched. And so, this obvious, like, genetic mutating that's going on, and she's terrified. Which is another reason that she's kind of lashing out at the others. It's just because she's scared. It's like this, like, we all handle things differently, and hers is maybe not the best coping, but yeah, that's kind of her reaction. But it does lead when Lena sees this. She even goes and like takes samples of her own DNA, and it's like she realizes that she's altered.
Yeah,
she's like, yeah, we are all being affected by this, just because we're in here.
Yeah, and so what do you do at that point? Do you keep going, or do you try to leave? I don't know. Yeah, and that's kind of that's the splitting point between them. Is Anya and Josie are ready to leave at that moment, at least, while Lena and Ventress are a lot more stuck on the mission. But again, because they have nothing to lose. Right. Ventress is dying. Yeah, but Ventress has cancer, and so like this is her like last hurrah. Anyway, she's like, I'm dying. I'm terminal. There's nothing I can do, so I might as well maybe make something of it in these last moments here. With the way that it was affecting DNA, how do you know that it wasn't adjusting her cancer? Like, true, yeah, putting her into remission? Because it could have, because of the way that everything was floating and changing and evolving in this, curtain called the shimmer. Behind the curtain, all the things are happening. Yeah. So that's, good talk about Anya there. Like, so she's losing it a little bit, maybe reacting to things not the best. And of course, then finding out about Lena's secret, and it just sends her on this dangerous spiral. We talked about that a little bit, her tying the others up and threatening them. And then again, that is cut short again from another interruption from the bear, and no, not the fictional Chicago restaurant. No. One of the interesting things about this bear, though, is like them, its DNA is affected, and they start to hear what they think is Shepard crying to them. Yeah. And it's not. It's the bear mimicking her. Yeah, it's... this, like I said, it's the thing that I think of the most of this movie. It's the single most impactful scene. Yeah. I mean, just the concept and design of the bear is horrifying on its own. Like, it's mutated to appear like the death that it causes. Yeah.
It's very skeletal in the face. If you actually, it's very dark, but if you look at some of the designs and like the actual like animatronics and stuff they used, there is a human skull embedded into the side of its face with like human teeth also in its mouth with its own jaws. Oh my
gosh.
Like, it's been eating people, and so it is like, it has human like skeletal pieces and bones and teeth and stuff mixed into its face. It's really fucked up, and it's disgusting and amazing. And also because it killed and ate Cassie, it mutated with her DNA. So then her like dying screams and words are embedded into its vocal cords and vocal patterns that mutated. And that's just so, and then to make it even worse, then Josie has this theory. She's, the possibility that Cassie's mind may have also been absorbed into the creature a little bit. So it's like, it's so intense.
It is. I mean, the whole premise of this movie and the way that the story was interwoven is really intriguing. Like, there are different pieces of it that are, you just question. It makes you think about things. Just the way that everything comes about and the way that things are just so fluid and moving, aimlessly within this organism.
Mm-hmm.
But they were just still something that I didn't connect with in this movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So where do you sit? Because I don't know if you've mentioned this on this. Yeah, the first time you watched this movie, you said you really didn't like it. You didn't care for it.
No, I didn't. When I watched it, and I audibly said, I really did not like this movie.
So I do wonder, has that changed even to some degree on a second watch and looking at it at a podcast lens like we do? Because like, I know The Ritual, you felt the same way. You didn't like that at all the first time you watched it. And then when we covered that way back in the first season of this podcast, you ended up having a lot more of appreciation for it. So
I did.
I wonder if this movie is similar to that, or if you're still kind of in the same place you were.
I'm not in the same place as I was. Because watching it again and looking at it from a different lens, while I don't love it, I have grown to appreciate a lot of the parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a better place when it comes to this movie. But it's not going to be on my top 10 list of movies this season.
Right.
I thought the acting was great. I thought Natalie Portman did such a great job.
Of course. Well, she's Natalie Portman. So
I know. She can do whatever she
can do no
wants.
wrong, right? Like, in any way. And then Jennifer Jason Leigh is always
good.
Incredible. She's
always.
So good.
I thought the acting overall was fantastic. There were just things that I can't put my finger on, but I just didn't connect with.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could figure out what it is, but I can't. Like, I've watched it twice. Once when it came out and then once for the podcast. Maybe it takes a third watching to figure it out. But I just didn't connect. And I do like Alex Garland. I do like what he creates. I think he is a master storyteller. I think there were just things that I'm not sure why I can't or wasn't connecting with in this movie. Although I will say I feel better about it now.
Cool.
I do feel better about it. Talking about it and breaking down different pieces makes it easier. And maybe, because we're not done podcasting on it yet, maybe there'll be something that will come up in the rest of the conversation that will make me say, and that's why I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Or that's why it bothered me. Or that's why I didn't connect with it. Because it's not a bad movie. I just didn't connect with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not like you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen very often on this podcast.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? Most of the time when we watch a movie, we come to like connect on it and have similar feelings. This one is not one of those times. And I knew when you suggested it, you said, I know what movie we should do. because this director's got another movie that just came out, and I knew exactly where you were going with it, and I just thought, oh boy.
Yeah, because you know I love this one.
I know you love it. And all I could think is, okay, and this is the time that I'm going to have to burst Pake's bubble and tell him that I don't like this movie. But it's not that I don't like it. It's just I didn't connect with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really sure why, but it wasn't a Daphne movie.
Right. And that's fine. Yeah. Garland is a very abstract writer.
Yes.
For sure.
He is.
He said, as much as I love him, I just watched Men and I appreciate what it was. Yeah. So I can feel you because I was like, I appreciate what it was, but at the end, it's like, it's hard to connect to. And it's like, it's maybe a little too abstract for me, right. But I appreciate what he's doing. So I can kind of understand having that feeling with something that he does for sure.
Yeah. And there are directors like that I cannot connect with. Like I can't connect with their brand of storytelling. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it before, I'm sure, in the last 170 episodes, that I am not a fan of Ari Aster. But I do know people that think he's fantastic. But I can't connect with his movies. I need
to see more. I've only seen Midsummer, and it was just okay to me. So
yeah, I did not like Midsummer, and I don't know if I saw it again, if that would help.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, there's one for me that people tend to really love that I just can't really connect with is Robert Eggers.
You've mentioned that before.
People love The Lighthouse.
I not like
I love Willem Dafoe. Robert Pattinson's great. I did not like that movie. No. I didn't care for it.
No.
What was Eggers' more recent one? The Northman.
Yeah. I
enjoyed it. I thought it was good. But it had Eggers-ness to it that I could point out and go, I don't like that part because that's very Eggers. Like, there's things about his style that I'm like, I don't connect with, and I can pull those pieces out of that movie. I think it was a great movie overall. I did enjoy it, but there were some of his signatures that were all over it that I was like, but there is that. Like, he does that a lot and I don't like that. So yeah.
It rubs you the wrong way. Mm-hmm. It takes away from the overall enjoyment. Even if you can separate yourself from it, you still are left with that little bit that's kind of like, no. It could have been great, but there was this. I feel like I think that's the case sometimes with different directors. Yeah. I like M. Night Shyamalan, mostly. Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of people don't like anything that he's done.
Right.
But I think that there are some good ones that he has done.
Oh, for sure.
We won't talk about the happening, but we did talk about that movie, actually. Yeah. And you should go back. If you have not listened to our coverage of The Happening, you should definitely go back and listen to it, because it was one of our most fun conversations ever.
I feel like we could do more Shyamalan on here. Like, I mean, you go back to more classic. I mean, like, The Village is iconic.
Yes.
But
Signs
is so good. Yeah. I do really like Signs. But then, like, there's been some other ones that, not so great. Even to the point, like, his reputation got to a place where, like, when Split came out, his name was not attached to it publicly until after you saw it. And then it was like at the end of the movie, it was like, oh, by the way, this was Shyamalan, just so you know. And it's like, what? But it was good.
It was good. Exactly. You don't even realize it. And I think he has a new film that's coming out somewhat soon. Trap. And it has Josh Hartnett. And I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to say this man takes his daughter to a concert. And I've watched the trailer. It has a lot of potential, and I'm hopeful.
Nice.
I'm hopeful that this one is as good as what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen anything from it, but yeah, it's kind of hit or miss. There's some really great Shyamalan, and then I still haven't watched Old, just because some of the premises are a little like...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Did not like that one.
Mm-hmm.
Did not like that one. His daughter, Ashana, has a movie coming out this year. She's a director as well. And she is directing a movie called The Watchers. And it has a lot of potential. And it has one of our favorites, Georgina Campbell, in it.
Oh, nice.
So it's one that will fit into our world. So let's be cautiously optimistic. But to answer your question, as I already have, I'm in a better place with it. It's not one that I want to watch again, but I do appreciate it more because we're talking about it. And there were some things that I genuinely did like. The creatures were great.
Yeah.
And the acting was great. There were just some things with the story that I didn't like.
Yeah. Yeah, go back. Yeah, I mean, some of the acting thing, I forgot that Tessa Thompson was in this. Since I had first seen it, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
She's always great.
She's always great.
Oscar Isaac, as much as it kind of more of a smaller role that he was, it's still very pivotal near the end, but Alex Garland loves him some Oscar Isaac. I mean, who doesn't love them some Oscar Isaac?
I know.
But I mean, because again, Ex Machina. Have you seen Ex Machina? Because it's another great Garland film.
I have not seen Ex Machina, but I do know that he likes Ex Machina people because he has used them before. Like his visual effects folks that did Ex Machina with him also did effects on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely connected. I've heard really great things about Ex Machina. I've just never seen it.
It might be, as far as Garland's directorial movies, the ones he directed, as much as I really do like Annihilation, I think Ex Machina is my favorite of his.
Well, then I might have
now, after seeing Civil War's up there. It was really good, but like Ex Machina is great. I mean, Alicia Vikander. It's great. It's really good. I don't think it really fits this podcast at all, but I do recommend it.
Okay. There are movies that we do enjoy outside of this podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe someday we'll talk about them, but not this week.
Yeah. But anyway, back on this movie. Fun director's tangent. We go on so many tangents, but they're always great. We talk about the bear. So yeah, just that whole, again, you mentioned Anya kind of caused her own death in that situation.
She did.
With it. So yeah, R.I.P. Anya there. And it looks like Josie apparently is pretty deadly with a gun as well. So maybe Lena wasn't the only one that was needed for that. She's the one that takes the bear out. But yeah. Where are we at in the story? Because I jumped to like Shimmer stuff in the bear. But
well, Anya's dead. Cassie's dead. Josie's great with a gun.
And yeah, so that so we've got, and then Ventress leaves that night. She's tired of waiting around and like dealing with like the issues with everybody else. So she's like, I'm headed to the lighthouse now. Catch you later.
But she picked this complicated group of people.
She did.
Okay, she picked.
So much for understanding psychology.
Exactly. She picked a complicated group of people to go out on this trek. So that is on her.
Right.
She should have known better.
Yeah, and then, so the next day, then Lena and Josie are going to get up to go join, and then that's when Josie decides to just be a tree instead. So
yeah, she's looking at the flowers.
Mm-hmm. So now with everybody else dead, except Ventress, who left on her own to get to the lighthouse, Lena is on her own here. But then she just kind of makes her way down to the beach in the lighthouse without really any other issues herself.
Oh man.
Just jump through some stuff. Maybe there's some tower weird stuff in the book that they just kind of skipped over, but that's fine. It's fine.
That beach scene with all the skulls.
Mm-hmm.
That I would not have wanted to go out in that lighthouse when the entrance is paved with skulls. Like,
right.
It's like abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. But she did it because she was looking for Ventress. She's still looking for answers. She goes inside.
And answers she definitely finds. She makes a lot of huge realizations at the lighthouse. crazy, wild realizations, but they are what they are. The fact that her husband Kane was duplicated, that the one that came out and appeared at her house was not Kane. She watches this video where the original, her husband, immolates himself with this phosphorus grenade and then tells the duplicate to find Lena if he ever can get out, because his mind and body are too altered for him to go on anymore. He, kind of like what happened to Anya, like the fact that he's coming to grips with how much he's changing and being mutated, and like he can't live with that.
Right. He basically, I think, loses his mind because he can't psychologically live with how he has changed and continues to change. So
he's hoping for whatever small part of him that may be in this duplicate that's better adapted for this to kind of live on and find his wife, and he's just hoping for something. And then she goes down like I said, the movie's closest approximation or version of the tunnel that's in the book, and finds Ventress down there. Maybe. More likely also her duplicate.
Do you think Ventress offed herself?
Maybe. We don't really, again, there's a lot of things, but it's Garland, so there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions. Yeah.
And maybe that is why. Maybe there are just too many unanswered questions for me. Maybe that's why I can't connect with it. Maybe that's why I don't love it. Maybe I can handle unanswered questions, but not as many as what are left in this.
Yeah.
That could be it.
Mm-hmm. But talking to this Ventress, version of Ventress, whatever it is that she's talking to, because again, why I say that I don't think it was even the real Ventress is we see whenever Lena first enters there, her face is not there. Like it's like, it is like this, like the duplicates where they kind of become something. And like you can see she's not, her face isn't finished when she's talking to her. So it's not the real Ventress, whatever happened to her, but it's this copy, but she still has, because of this like duplicate, so she has some of these memories and thoughts and abilities and understandings of Dr. Ventress. So she's able to talk to Lena in that way to reveal that whatever this is that's going on, it has intelligence.
Yes.
Like this is a deliberate takeover, not necessarily, like I said earlier, not necessarily like nefarious or evil. It's just, this is what it does.
Yeah.
And that's where the title, Annihilation, its plan is just to keep expanding until the entire Earth is taken over by the Shimmer and just to take over.
It's wiping people out. It's wiping things out and replacing them. I mean, to me, that's kind of what's happening. It's wiping. It's, taking them over, adapting, changing, and getting rid of them and replacing them if it needs to, but I don't think it needs to in every case. I think the adaptation or assimilation, I guess, is working.
Yeah. And then whatever integrated with her, took her over, it expands into light. It's almost like she fused with a power source of some kind of like alien technology. It was very... but it's also biological. It's like genetic material that's also technology. It's whatever this alien being, race, whatever it is.
It's so hard because that is a question that isn't answered.
Yeah.
But I believe it's an organism.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to read the other books in the trilogy to get more answers and dive deeper into that stuff.
Good. Maybe
aspects of it.
Maybe if you can answer some of the questions for me, then I might appreciate this movie even more.
Yeah.
So get on that right away. Mm-hmm. After Dr. Sleep, after Lord of the Flies, before M.R. Carey.
Yeah.
Answer these questions.
I've got other books too. I've got so many books to read.
Little time.
I know. But so then Lena sees the same thing that her husband did as she's watching that videotape before what he did to himself. This eyeball entity that takes her DNA and then forms a duplicate of her whose goal seems to be, we mentioned, learning, copying, and becoming.
Mm-hmm.
maybe even replacing. But Lena is able to light it ablaze with another phosphorus grenade, which then causes this chain reaction that seemingly burns the whole nucleus of the shimmer and whatever it is down. So, with that action there,
it taught it to self-destruct, which is something it didn't really know how to do.
Yeah.
But humans do know.
Yeah, leave it to humans to teach some high intelligent being how to
self-destruct.
Destroy themselves. Yeah.
I mean, it came up in the movie too, where they were talking about how humans have this innate ability to self-destruct or destroy.
Yeah. Like it's built into our DNA. That's this,
Especially if something's going really well. That you just somehow find a way to ruin it. And I think even if you don't do that on purpose, I think sometimes that we live in fear of something bad happening, so much so that if we hyper-analyze it or hyper-focus on it or get anxious about it, it ends up happening because of the stress and anxiety and worry.
Right. Yeah. So then you see with this, I was kind of burning everything down. It's like, Lena may have just saved Earth. Maybe. Although, if I'm to piece together what Alex Garland leaves us with at the end, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say she might have put a little bit of a pause on things. She might have bought some time, but I don't think she actually accomplished much of anything in the ultimate end goal. And of course, why I think that's at the very ending, of course, we kind of learned the duplicate of Kane wasn't able to survive outside of the shimmer, but then I wonder, because when it all goes down...
When it goes down, it is able to survive. Like, he
comes back, and it's like the parts that were Kane kind of took over.
Yeah.
Like, he's still something new, but it's viable now. But, to what extent? To what end? What's the plan? Maybe what Lena did was just the next step in the evolution that whatever this being, this organism needed to be able to survive outside of the shimmer. To be able to annihilate and assimilate and take over better.
I mean...
because now we have whatever Kane is. And then also Lena herself. Everything that changed in her, all the edits, her DNA changing and affecting while she was inside... That still is in effect. That's still an issue. Like, whatever being or beings behind everything are still alive and well within her.
I think it changed so much of her. And maybe the end game really was for the two of them to be the
new Adam and Eve.
The new Adam and Eve. I mean, maybe. Maybe that's the point, is that is what's supposed to happen. I've seen people talking online like they think that it wasn't really Lena that came out. It was her duplicate, but I don't think that at all. I think it definitely is her. Yeah,
I think it definitely is her, but she has been edited and changed enough to where, like I said, it's almost like the next evolution of whatever this shimmer being is.
Yeah. Also, there's one point where she drinks a little bit of water, but the water looks like it's got a shimmer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like she's able to still affect other things. I think the shimmer is down, she's out, but now because of whatever it is in her and still changing her and affecting her, that maybe her and Kane 2.0 together are now just the catalysts for still affecting and changing and editing things around them, and it's going to continue to expand anyway.
Well, I mean, you have to wonder, is it like radiation, where something that's radioactive affects the things that are around it?
Right. I mean, because there's a very deliberate shot at the end where there's like this light and changing in their eyes that you see.
Yes.
It's in both of them, and it's kind of the movie ends on that note of like, there is something within them that is not them.
Yes, and that is why people think, oh, well, I think it was, her clone or her duplicate came out. No, because that doesn't have to happen for her to come out and have this look in her eyes or have this shimmer in her, because her DNA started changing the minute she took a step into the shimmer. It's been changing this entire time. The creatures that were in the shimmer did not, the shimmer didn't really create them as much as it took what was there and changed it.
Yeah. All right. So I'm trying to think, that might be, because I jumped into some of my other notes, but that's all that I've really got on, like, Lena and the main story. I talked about all the, like, shimmer stuff. I threw it in. So only other section I had was, like, the team. And I think
we've talked about a lot of it.
We've covered all of that. I'm looking at my notes because, talked about Jennifer Jason Leigh. I think her portrayal as Dr. Ventress was really, really great, because her character is meant to be cold, calculating, and
that's
and
exactly how she came across.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly how.
And of course, her real reason for going in with the terminal cancer and making something happen, we talked about that. The others really talked about them other than, Shepard, R.I.P. Shepard. We talked about that a little bit. And Josie. So honestly, I think I'm good. I've finished.
Really? Everything?
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have a couple things. One, the house they went into when they were in Area X, the Shimmer, looked very similar to Lena's house on the outside, I thought. I did like the mixing between present day and flashback. I thought the way they did it made sense.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple behind the scenes things to talk about. So, Annihilation was kind of poorly received during the test screenings that they did. So, David Ellison, who was one of the finance people, or he put money forward for the film, he was really concerned that Garland had made this too intellectual and too complicated. And so he wanted changes to be made so it would appeal to a wider audience.
Alex Garland, intellectual and complicated?
Exactly.
No.
One of the things he wanted was Natalie Portman's character portrayal to be more sympathetic. He also wanted him to change the ending. However, Scott Rudin, who is producer, sided with Garland, and they didn't alter a thing. They kept it all the same. I think it's great when a producer gets behind the director and sticks with it and focuses on what the vision is. Even if I didn't love it, I appreciate when people get behind the creators. I think it's important to do that. There was some criticism behind the casting because in the book, well, this is kind of a spoiler, so maybe I shouldn't say this. Later on in the book series, you learn more about the nationality. Let's just say that Natalie Portman and Jennifer Jason Leigh don't match up to those ethnicities.
Right. It's not really a big deal for me. I think just like fictional characters, unless it's like integral to their story and their plot. I mean,
and again, it's not known in this book.
Whatever. Yeah, not in Annihilation. There's no, so their names aren't even mentioned. It's literally as like almost unpersonal as it can be. With that, it's still.
When I read a book or I'm listening to a book, I like to create the picture of who the character is in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I mentioned that on a previous podcast that like I kind of like fantasy cast in my head. Sometimes it's like people that don't actually exist. Like you said, just paint like a picture of like and like just a fictional person. But then there are some times where I literally take like actors and public figures and people that I know and be like, they would be playing that role. And so I just kind of, I kind of put their face and even voice sometimes into that character.
I like that.
Sometimes. So I'm like over halfway through Dr. Sleep and still like the Dick Halloran flashbacks. I'm like, Still call him Domingo. He's still there.
You know what? Someday when they remake The Shining for the 100th time, I think he could play Dick Halloran. I mean, he could.
He'd be great for it. My brain thinks it is.
It'll work, right?
It
works.
I think so.
Yeah, so that was part of that issue. So the town that they go into, that's kind of been taken over by the Shimmer, is called Ville Perdue, and it is actually French for lost town. So it kind of makes sense. And the last thing, Oscar Isaac, he was filming Annihilation and Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, on adjacent studio lots. He had the same trailer for both of the films, and he would often film scenes on the same day for each one. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Just having to to try to play both roles and jump back and forth. It's two very different things.
Who am I here?
Yeah.
What is the scene? I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, that's pretty good multitasking, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I am all done. I've got nothing else to add. I have nothing else to add. Nice.
Well, yeah, so we've annihilated the conversation on this movie. We got through it. I'm glad that you appreciated the movie more, but also you don't have to just oh my god, it's the best movie ever. No, that's fine. People have opinions for reasons. It's fine. I think it was a great conversation. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe not on this podcast, but just in our own personal lives, maybe I'll clue you in on some stuff once I get through the rest of the
I would love that, because I would like to know more. There are questions, I guess, that I would love to have fleshed out.
And I know, because the whole trilogy was a decade ago. And apparently a lot of people still, I guess, Vandermeer and Garland are similar in those ways. A lot of people were not happy with the way that Acceptance ended, the third book in the trilogy, where there was still a lot of unanswered questions and open endings that people were frustrated about. Well, I still need to know about that, and this wasn't answered, and this wasn't finished. And so that's why over a decade later, he is releasing the fourth book finally later this year. And so it's it's a perfect time for me to jump in and read the whole trilogy, and then. Like I said, I've already pre-ordered the fourth one, so when it comes out in October, then hopefully I don't have to be as frustrated as the other readers who have waited 10 years to get these answers that he's going to wrap up in this fourth book.
At least he wrote it, because there's another writer that we all know who hasn't finished a book that everyone's been waiting for. So it's great that he's going to finish the book or create the book at all.
Mm-hmm. So I'll be curious to get through all that. But yeah, another thing I'm curious about, of course, though, is what others have got to say about this. So maybe we got some good feedback. Let's see. All right, we do have a little bit of feedback this week for two movies. We got Annihilation this week, and we've got one more for 2 weeks ago. Actually, we took a little bit of a break for Final Girl. We've got some last minute one there coming through. Catherine, of course. Getting with that one. So I'll go ahead and read that one first. Catherine for Final Girl says, which is actually, because she wrote in for that one. This is kind of a follow-up on our response to her feedback from that one. That's what happens when you get 2 weeks between.
Yes.
I realized that, yeah. So she says, I loved the episode. All of the criticism was well-deserved. I still liked the last 20 minutes, especially the hunt in the woods, but could skip most of the rest. My second watch to catch plot points that turned out to be plot holes was on 1.5 speed, but it wasn't fast enough to miss the weird scenes between William and Veronica. I'm not sure if it's poor choice or coincidence that the thumbnail for the YouTube trailer is from the pancake scene.
It is.
I could watch Final Girl again, but I'll probably speed it up a bit faster until the woods scene, and I might skip the pancakes completely.
I feel like we could make this a short movie and cut out a lot of things.
Right.
It could be like a 20, 25-minute movie. It might be better.
Right. I think so.
Well, moving on to our feedback from Annihilation. Harrison said, loved the creativity of this one. I thought it was one of the better sci-fi movies of the past few years.
Yes. And I would tend to agree. Maybe not Daphne, but I would.
Yeah. Not my favorite, but I did grow to appreciate some of it.
Yeah. And then I get a double dose of Catherine for my reading today, which is good, because lastly, she's got her Annihilation feedback, saying, all I could remember about my first Annihilation watch were the alligator and bear attacks, and they're still my favorite scenes. The shimmer is so beautiful, and the overall story was great, but it was a bit confusing. The jumping back and forth in time was distracting, as I just wanted to stay in the shimmer, and I didn't care for most of the characters. It wasn't until the animal attack scenes that I felt anything for them. I'm looking forward to this week's breakdown, as this is a movie that I think would be much better with a deeper analysis.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Catherine, if you agree more with Pake or my assessment of this film.
Yeah, so again, you might have to do another follow-up. You're the kind of feedback that then requires like homework and follow-up. Sometimes.
Definitely.
That's okay, because yeah, I'm curious, as you said, you might enjoy it more with deeper analysis, because I know we even talked about a little bit more of the like underlying subplots and stuff that were more the mental kind of stuff behind as well. So yeah, maybe that helped flesh out things a little bit more. I don't know. Let us know.
Yeah. Well, if you'd like to submit your feedback like Harrison or Catherine, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on all the other podcast players, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need. And give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that is the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
We do indeed. And of course, speaking of sharing the love, gotta give those shout outs to things going on in the Podcastica universe around us. See, that's the first time I've said it that way, and I kind of like that. I might stick to it. Of course, we go outside of Podcastica a little bit, so the extended universe.
Yes.
The things that are in our orbit. But yeah, Podcastica, of course, since we did take last week off of a release, I'm going to kind of fill in on different stuff that's happened in like the last 2 weeks of Podcastica stuff. So get ready. A lot of good stuff to check out. Of course, the cast of us, putting out some good stuff with, Civil War, the Alex Garland movie. And I know I talked about this even early on at the beginning of this episode. So that is still up for you to go check out with Jason, David, and Jim talking about that one. Which is the Alex Garland Civil War movie. It was great. Definitely, if you enjoyed that, check that out. And then also after that, the Walking Dead rewatch, like spoiler full rewatch from the beginning that Jason and Lucy have been doing while waiting for other stuff to go on over there and for The Last of Us to come back, has continued. And so they are about halfway through season 2, episode 8, Nebraska, which, yeah, I remember that one well. So yeah, so if you're following along there or want to follow along with the Walking Dead rewatch with Jason and Lucy, that's where they're at. Go check that out. And then on House Podcastica, we have Karen, Penny, and if you remember the Get Out episode, you know he's a huge Marvel fan, Rinaldi joining them over there to talk about the 2021 MCU film Eternals, which was a very different MCU movie, but I actually really liked it because it was so different. So maybe they had similar thoughts. I haven't checked that out yet, but yeah, you should go check that one out because I know that's going to be a really interesting conversation. Still slaying the Buffy fan cast, still going on. Still season 3, ripping through those. Episode 17 this week, Enemies, and they are joined by Randy as a special guest over there to talk through that one. Of course, Randy, as you know, helms alongside Jenny and Rob the Welcome to the Apocalypse podcast. We always talk about that every chance we get to. The improv comedy apocalyptic podcast, which is coming up on its end. The next episode after this one, you can go listen to the episode I'm plugging now, and then there will be one more coming in a few weeks. Will be their season finale, then they'll take a little time off. But as the penultimates are always great. So you got to go listen to this one to see how they set up for what's going to happen in the finale.
Yes.
Our good friend Jeff is with them in this one, and it's wild. It's a blast. Callbacks getting ready to come up. I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you're following along, gotta listen to this one if you haven't. It's so good.
It was so good, and I am dying for the finale, but I also do not want the finale to come because I don't want a break. I need more.
Yes, I need way more all the time. I love what they're doing over there. Let's see. What is from It's a show. It's on MGM Plus, and it's a really good one.
Yes.
And the podcast on Podcastica for it is called What Is From Cast, and that is Alex and Lizzie. And the trailer for season 3 has dropped. I haven't watched it because I'm not a trailer person. I try to go in unspoiled. But if you're not like me, and you're one of those people that loves to dig into the trailers and look for all the clues and all the little bits and meaty pieces of what's going to happen, like Alex and Lizzie are, then you can go check out their coverage of that trailer where they put a whole episode watching that trailer, talking about the trailer, and digging in to try to find as many clues as they could to see what could they maybe expect in the upcoming season. And again, I avoid that kind of stuff, but I'm that kind of person. But I am very excited for season 3 of From and to see what happens. So go check out their podcast. Again, watch From if you haven't. It's incredible. Catch up on their podcast. And when season 3 comes, you're going to love their coverage. They're devoted to that show in the best ways. They're so good at it. So definitely check that out.
Yeah. And they just wrapped up filming.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting closer.
Yes. And then you can check out the Sandman cast with Mark and Jamie as they are going into the Sandman spin-off show Dead Boy Detectives over on Netflix. So their first episode is up now with episode 1. You can go check that out if you are a fan of that as well. Great shows. Revisited on a little bit of a break, but it's coming back May 20th. So in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
As you're listening to this, yeah.
10 days.
Next week.
Yeah.
Next weekend. And then lastly, of course, like I said, a little outside of Podcastica, but always give some love and a shout out to our good friends at TV Podcast Industries. They are always working on great shows, also doing Dead Boy Detectives on Netflix. And then also they're huge Star Wars nerds like me. And you can go check out their Bad Batch series finale coverage that came out in the past couple weeks. I haven't got there yet. I'm catching up. I'm in the 3rd season. I'm in the final season of Bad Batch, and oh my god, it's been quite the ride. And now I'm scared to see how this thing ends, but if you already have beaten me to that punch because I'm late and you need some therapy, go listen to them over at TV Podcast Industries, because I haven't seen the finale, but I already know. I'm like, it's going to be the most emotional thing that Star Wars is trying to pull. Why is Star Wars animation so god dang emotional and so good? But yeah, go check it out. And yeah, that's pretty much everything else going on around us. But you can always come back here to Run for Your Lives next week for some more fresh, good stuff. What do we got? And I know we teased it 2 weeks ago in the last episode, but if you didn't pay attention or you weren't listening or here for that, Daphne will give you a refresher.
Well, we're doing something extra special. When we started Run for Your Lives 4 years ago, our very first episode was covering the movie Tremors. A lot has changed since we dropped that first episode, and we decided to go back and cover Tremors with the lens that we use now, which is more character-driven analysis and discussion. So, we are going to do Tremors, the 1990 film that was directed by Ron Underwood, stars Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, and Michael Gross, and an action hero, however unlikely, was born from this film, and a franchise of 7 movies total became a cult phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very excited to go back and cover this one again.
Yeah. Be interesting to revisit, or do our own little revisited, of Tremors from the beginning with a different style, different look, and a lot of different experiences since that time.
Yeah, a lot has changed. And so we're going to break it down in our Run for Your Lives way and share some of the insight that we've learned over the last couple years.
Yeah.
And with that, we've reached the end of our episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pate.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.